Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1290. Fulfilling Wishes. Putting away the Fool card, Klein took out Creeping Hunger from the void, equipped it to his left hand, and activated Teleport. After returning to the miniaturized city library, he immediately said to the servant of concealment, Ariana, "It has been thrown into the abandoned palace on the main peak of the Hornacis mountain range." That was an entrance to the foggy town. As for how to deal with 0-02 later on, it was the Church of Evernight's problem. "All right." Ariana nodded and didn't say anything else. She entered a concealed state and vanished as though she had been erased. She didn't thank him, nor mention any payment. It was just like how she had never made any requests when she helped Klein in the past. "Does Ma'am Ariana know that I've obtained the Fool card?" Klein looked around thoughtfully, and slowly sighed in the darkness. Although the supernatural incident had been resolved in less than 2 hours, there were still quite a number of people who had lost their lives under the strict rules. The Belton citizens had more or less committed certain mistakes, but the punishments they suffered were far more disproportionate to the crimes they had committed. The most innocent party in the matter were the tourists who came or passed by Belton. They had to face a nightmare simply because they were foreigners. Klein had tried his best to do some things to protect many outsiders, including Roy and the others, but he was also limited in what he could do due to the restrictions he suffered. There weren't many loopholes that could be made use of, making it impossible to make it seem like none of that had ever happened. "What I need to do next is to mainly provide treatment to the survivors." Klein retracted his gaze and planned on teleporting to Biles's house to deal with the remaining problems. At that moment, Rionette Tinker, who was holding 4 blonde, red-dyed heads and was wearing a dark and complicated long dress, walked out of the void. One of the heads bit onto a black goat's horn. "He escaped the spirit world," the remaining 3 heads of Miss Messenger said. "As expected of a former chief shepherd." Klein, who had long sensed it, sighed without any surprise. Then, he pointed at the black goat's horn. "Did Larian leave that behind?" After Klein received the item, Rionette Tinker's head that hadn't spoken earlier said, "Yes." After encountering the curse of deformity, he had still managed to barge out of the encirclement and escape from the spirit world. He is indeed powerful. Is this a Sequence 2 angel who's best at fighting head-on? Klein flicked his wrist, causing the black goat horn in his palm to shatter into countless tiny specks of light as it dissipated, dispersing the remnant psyche. The limbs left behind by a Beyonder after them undergoing a transformation contain a portion of their Beyonder characteristics that couldn't return to the main body. When the points of light were reassembled from Sequence 9 to Sequence 7, as well as a Sequence 4 Beyonder characteristic, Klein chose the Sequence 8 pugilist from it, and returned the rest to Miss Messenger with a smile. "These are your spoils. I'll only collect the intelligence fee." Rionette Tinker didn't stand on ceremony. She raised one of the blonde, red-dyed heads and had it open its mouth, absorbing the Sequence 9, Sequence 7, and Sequence 4 warrior Beyonder characteristics. After watching Miss Messenger leave Belton, Klein teleported back to Biles's home and smiled at Roy and company. "The problem has been resolved. You are no longer foreigners who have to be treated with animosity." The 4 Beyonders were just about to respond with heartfelt and relieved smiles when they saw the magical Mr. Magician invite a stranger from the air. It was an old man with a dark red bow tie. He wore a shirt, vest, formal suit, and blue striped trousers. His hair remained thick despite it being all white. His aura was warm and elegant. This was the marionette Vin Rambus, whom Klein had once possessed. He planned on using this manipulator to seal away their memories of 0-02. Not being corrupted by a Sapphira didn't mean that Biles wouldn't encounter terrifying matters when he recollected the matter. As there was only one relevant period of memory for Biles, and he didn't know the truth of the matter, what Klein needed to do was rather simple. Therefore, he didn't seek Miss Justice's help. He planned on using his marionette's historical void projection to complete it. "You didn't tell them about what happened in the city library, right?" Klein got Vin Rambus to walk to his side as he asked Biles. Biles hurriedly shook his head and said, I remember your advice. Very good. Next, I'll give you some psychological treatment. I'll help you forget all those matters. Otherwise, you'll be targeted by 0-02 and never be able to obtain peace until you die. Believe me, sealed artifacts at this level can definitely do something like that, even if it has been taken away. Klein explained his goal frankly. Biles's lips quivered as he said, All right. He chose to obey and believe. After inviting Roy Pasha and Phil out of this rental apartment, Klein controlled Vin Rambus to do a series of mental control processes and successfully made Biles forget the brass book he had seen, as well as the contents on it. After doing this, Klein carefully took out the magic mirror and looked at it. Rhodes, are there any other hidden dangers? On the surface of the ancient silver mirror, the aqueous light flickered and reflected a line of silver words. Great Master, there aren't any latent risks in Belton. As for other places in Lone and Face Sack, as it involves 0-02 itself, I'm unable to see it clearly. Perhaps you can confirm it yourself? All right. Klein nodded slightly, took out a gold coin, and softly chanted the corresponding divination statement. With a ping, the gold coin flicked up and tumbled in the air. During this process, scenes naturally surfaced in Klein's mind. They were chimneys, streets, and cities. They were extremely vague and lacked specific directions. With a slight frown, he collected his thoughts and reached out to catch the gold coin. Then, he got Pasha and the others to return to Biles's home. He smiled and said to Roy, Didn't you wish to obtain the next potion? You can make a wish now. Roy's eyes revealed surprise and he asked nervously, I can still make another wish? This is a gift. Klein replied with a smile. Roy's heart stirred. Without asking any more questions, he seized this opportunity to fulfill his wish of obtaining the next potion. Klein then threw the Warrior Pathway Sequence 8 Pugilist Beyonder characteristic to him. This is essentially a potion, but for safety, I suggest you search for the corresponding formula and find the correct supplementary ingredients. Your amazing feats are worthy of praise. Roy expressed his gratitude. His first potion had, in some sense, been a Warrior Beyonder characteristic that he devoured. As the apocalypse was approaching, along with his relatively low sequence and good luck, he didn't lose control on the spot. He didn't even have any serious psychological problems. After that, he gradually came into contact with other Beyonders and came into contact with true mysticism. Only then did he learn how dangerous his actions were, and he didn't dare make a similar attempt again. Faced with Roy's praise, Klein looked around and smiled. Next, follow me out of Belton. This doesn't mean that there's still danger here, but I have to make use of this time to fulfill your wishes. One wish involved Roy hoping that Klein could help them leave the Belton, while the other wish involved Pasha's wish to have Klein protect them and allow them to leave Belton City alive. Although these two matters were meaningless under the present situation, to Klein, he had to fulfill the wish even if there was no point in doing it. I'm just a heartless, wish-granting machine. Klein lampooned himself as he smiled at Biles and company. Pasha and the others glanced at each other, not daring to raise any objections. Just like before, they held each other's hands. Then Klein brought them to the outskirts of Belton with teleportation. The magic show has come to an end. It's time to say goodbye. Klein took off his hat and bowed. He tried his best to make himself a true wandering magician. This was a habit of his acting. Upon seeing this, Pasha blurted out, Can we know your name? Klein smiled and said, I have too many names. Different people have different names for me. You can call me the miracle magician Merlin Hermes. Mr. Hermes, are you a believer of the Evernight goddess? Roy asked after some hesitation. For a moment, Klein didn't know how to answer. He really wanted to say that he once was, but not anymore. After some consideration, he decided to act as an attendant of mysteries in advance. He immediately restrained his smile and solemnly said, The one I serve is the Fool, the Lord of the Mysteries, the great ruler above the spirit world. If you wish to believe in this mighty existence, or wish to gain more of an understanding, you can go to the Sonia Seas Rorstad archipelago. The Lord's missionary, Danitz, is currently preaching there. Furthermore, the City of Silver definitely has all the potion formulas from the Warrior Pathway under Sequence 2. Klein silently added, but he didn't say it out loud. Roy nodded slightly and said, "It's my first time knowing of such a mighty existence in this world. Your miraculous nature has shown his brilliance." He didn't directly respond to Mr. Merlin Hermes because he was still hesitant. Pasha, Biles, and Phil were the same. Without another word, Klein turned around and left the Four Beyonders, before making a detour to Belton. He didn't forget his purpose in alighting at this tiny city. He planned on immediately finding a room to study the Fool card above the gray fog. In a city in Midseashire, at a particular library. A young law researcher took out a book from the bookshelf and walked to a table by the window and sat down. As he carefully read through the book, he realized that there was a page of yellowish brown paper in it. "What is this?" The young law researcher muttered to himself in confusion, and reached out to pull out the paper. After confirming that it was written in ancient face sack, the content was rather rare. In the fourth epoch, there was a book named the Trunsois Brass Book,